There are two genuine grievances that the intelligence services in the UK have created. The key word there is genuine, authentic grievance. If you talk to people that specialise in de-radicalisation, the fact that these grievances that people hold are genuine is key to creating radicalised factions of society. So the two factions that have genuine grievances in the UK, purposefully created, curated by the oligarchs that rule and control our country, are the white working class and the Muslims that they've imported. So imagine you've got a white working class neighbour on one side and a Muslim neighbour on the other. Your Muslim neighbour is watching every day in the UK, listening to people talk about the problems Islam. He's being treated like the worst stereotype. And then on the other side, you've got your white working class friend who's being told he's racist every day, etc. And this is a dialectic that they created on purpose to control our society, to create a clash between two groups, both groups having authentic grievances. So the way it works is, by having this dialectic between two factions, they can control the extent to which there is animosity, unity, disunity. What happens is, for example, in this case, in this example, you will always have your BBC, Guardian, monocultural, multicultural types that will support mass immigration, and they'll support Muslims no matter what they do, and so they're a guarantee. And then you've got your indigenous population that's always going to commonsensically say this is not natural, this is not what countries do, and why is it happening to us? And they will have their media that they consume. So people conceptualize, for example, new media, let's say right-wing new media, as antithetical or in opposition to things like the BBC. I personally don't believe that. I believe that both sides are centrally controlled, and there you get your dialectic. So imagine if you're controlling either something like, I don't know how the Daily Mail is these days, something like talk radio, or a right-wing YouTube channel. If you're controlling that, if you're the intel agencies and you're controlling that, and you're also at the same time controlling BBC and Channel 4, you can control the extent to which they put their foot on the gas on either issue. So I'm just being distracted by something that's happened up here. I think I'm gonna turn around and come back this way. So if you can control both sides in that way, you can ramp up the gas on both sides. You can exaggerate the situation. You can exaggerate the extent to which you call people names, and you can control the level of hate on both sides. and it creates a great control dialectic for the intel people. So that's what I think is one of the reasons that you've got this issue of mass immigration in the UK. It's not the only reason. The other thing which people, it's a difficult subject for the country to talk about, but they're collapsing the country, they're collapsing the economy. And nobody knows for sure what their end game is. But it's definitely happening. You can see that it's happening. People are so reluctant to try and talk about who's really in charge. This obsession with conceptualizing everything is still a democracy, and you've got to vote for reform. Someone was asking yesterday about why more people don't wake up and stuff like this. This is just like, I've said before, this is the case in all kinds of tyrannies. But yeah, they're collapsing the economy. I think what they want to do is create like a neo-feudal system where they just have a continent, like a flat continent, with a controlled, flat, one continent, no countries, no nationhood. And I think ultimately they're all about empire. We're going into a new century. They've got Russia and China to think about. I think their concept of democracy is very hard to maintain now. So I think people know that it isn't a democracy. So now they've got this situation where you've got the word democracy, which they want to maintain for the time being, but they're not going to be able to maintain it for much longer. And I think that eventually what they'll do is they'll give up that idea of forcing the term democracy on everyone. I think so many people know that it isn't now. So I think this new century is going to be about being a power faction in the world, like Russia, China, and the United States. They want to radically militarize Europe, and I think that's probably what they're going to do. They've got this issue with Russia. I think Britain's going to rejoin the EU. I don't know how overtly they're going to do it, but I think that some of this, one of the reasons the Brits are so keen on war in Ukraine, one of the reasons, it's a secondary or tertiary reason, but I do think they want to rejoin the EU. And I think that the next 20 years for them is going to be about concentrating on their war in Ukraine, integrating UK back into EU, and militarizing Europe, and having some kind of more of a nationalist vibe, but a European nationalist vibe. And as I say, I think the biggest thing will be in the next 20 years will be that they'll do away with this concept, or trying to push this concept of democracy, because it's not working anymore. We've got our internet, and people know perfectly well that there's only one narrative you're allowed to follow. We know perfectly well that if any party comes from the outside, that they are annulled, like they were in Romania, or they're ostracized, marginalized, or completely shut out by the institutions and the parliament and the media. And we know that every time there's an issue, there's only one side of the issue you're allowed to take. And we know what's going to happen if you take the wrong side. And we know the type of people that are going to be on the side of the government, because it's the same people every single time. It's the same narrative every single time. It's morality. We're on the side of the good people, caring and compassion, versus the evil, marginalized people that go against the government. And I think that is an ingrained model now in the West, especially Europe, especially UK. And I don't think that we can continue too long with that as a model. It's ingrained in our culture now. We know what's going to happen. The next thing that happens is going to be the same people saying the same things with the same formula every single time. And I don't think we can carry on for too long. Keep carrying on saying that it's a democracy. I think they're going to do away with it eventually. In the next couple of decades, I think they'll do away with it and they'll just go for some kind of European nationalism. Anyway, that's my take. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm going to leave it there. I'll see you next time.